Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Indie Radio presents Talking About Walkers, the Walking Dead podcast, the show that breaks down all new episodes of your favorite zombie TV show right here on indieradio.org. And now, here are the hosts of the podcast, Kinte, Jen, and Olaf. Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of Talking About Walkers. I am your host, Kinte, all the way live from Los Angeles, California, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm joined also by my co-host, the wonderful Olaf Barbosa. Olaf, how are you doing?
I am doing good. Nobody's told me any different, so I'm going to stick with that. You know,
hey, I can dig it.
You know, it's like another lovely day in the great state of Indiana. You know, you get up and it's 20 degrees, and by noon it's like 55. So, yeah. And now it's back down to about 40, I think. So.
I love it. I'm so glad you are here.
Yeah.
And also joining us is the one and only Jen. How you doing, Jen?
I'm pretty awesome. No snow this time, so I can't really report anything fun and fascinating happening on Maui, but it did rain again. This is so insane. There are parts of Maui that are underwater, and I mean, I know this doesn't make any sense to like everybody, but have you ever seen like when something's underwater and you're like, oh my God, that doesn't belong underwater? That's how like half of this island is. It is so crazy right now.
What parts are underwater?
There's beach roads underwater. There's anything that was low-lying. The ground is so wet that the moment that it rains, it floods. There's just no. Apparently, we are living on Noah's Island right now. Everybody's ready to build an ark.
Like
it's so crazy.
In Lahaina, is that like underwater and stuff, or close?
I wish Lahaina was underwater.
Okay.
No. Lahaina's not underwater. Just okay. All of the beach roads are all underwater. Places that you wouldn't expect. But anyway.
Right.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I have to say that this episode of The Walking Dead was apparently a bit of a slow episode because I only took 4 pages of notes. And they're pretty big notes. So.
Oh wow! Okay.
We have a very slow episode going on.
All right. Well,
your notes read like it began. They did some stuff, and then it ended.
Well, I started making bulleted lists, and that's like never a good sign. That usually means I'm like stretching stuff out. So yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this episode. It's entitled Bounty, and it is episode 11 of season 9. And this particular podcast is episode 110 of our podcast of this series. Okay, so like I said, it's called Bounty, and this episode begins with a flashback. We're back at the kingdom. And I swear, King Ezekiel is really trying to woo Carol. I mean, he's going to great lengths to show his love and devotion to Queen. Oh, don't say Queen.
Don't say Queen. Don't say Queen.
Carol. And so, you know, we've talked about that relationship and what I think about that relationship. And I kind of want to reiterate what we think about the King Ezekiel and Don't Say Queen Carol relationship.
I don't. As far as I don't see it as a real problem. And it's like they see it's like just knowing kind of how they've come together or whatever. They're kind of like totally opposite personalities. So it's like, I don't know. It could be it seems to be sort of a fairly decent blend, but I don't know. I'm okay with it, but I don't have a problem with them. Uh, you know, it's like I'm not against those two being together. I think they, being together, I think they make a good couple.
You know how you can tell that they actually make a good couple.
Why
Uh,
is that?
well, if you're watching The Walking Dead and you hear like a loud clunk, that's usually my eyes rolling, and that's what happens when they're on screen. But that I think that means that they actually make a good couple because it's so it just makes you go, "Oh, that's so sweet," and it almost feels like it doesn't even belong. Their relationship is actually, I think, a well-deserved relationship, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
secretly really root for Carol on so many levels because she's just not only has she been through so much, but her character arc has changed so dramatically from when we first met her, and I have this feeling like any amount of time that she can be happy is a good time. That's
and
a time well spent.
have you noticed, like with her being with King Ezekiel, in others, she's not wearing her hair's not short anymore. It's just long. She got long hair now.
And she speaks to him the way that people who've been in a relationship for a while actually speak to each other, with the
Right.
kind of cute back and forth. And I don't know, there's just something about it that's actually a little bit endearing. And the reason that I think that it does kind of work is because, like you said, they are so opposite, but because the opposite in them is complementary.
Right.
It's not at odds, so it doesn't feel like a Michonne and Rick, which actually really did sort of, I don't know, rub me the wrong way. But in this case, they actually feel like they're compatible. I like them
They,
together.
I don't. It's like now for me, I never really did see Rick and Michonne as a real couple. I mean, it just didn't seem to have the chemistry. When you see King Ezekiel and Carol together, they just flow. I mean, it just works. It flows. That's what I said. They make a good couple.
Well, the thing I didn't like about the Michonne and Rick one is it was like he was really into the blonde girl. I can't remember what her name was, and then when she died, it was like, I'll mess with Michonne, whatever. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed like she was just there,
But
something to do.
there just never really seemed to be a real. You didn't really see a real connection between Rick and
It
Michonne. It
Yeah,
just
there
it
was
just
no
didn't gel.
on-screen chemistry at all.
Right.
And I'm not saying that there's like a whole lot of on-screen chemistry between Ezekiel and Carol, but the way that their dialogue flows back and forth, it's endearing. It's sweet. It's I don't know, in the depths of everything that's so terrible, there's something that feels very renewed in it, and it doesn't feel forced. If you
No.
if you
It
listen
flows
to the
easy.
lines if you listen to the lines in this episode between Henry and Lydia, and then you listen to the lines between Carol and Ezekiel, there is a stark uh, contrast between those two. And the Carol Ezekiel lines feel like they flow. I don't know. I just like it. I feel
Now,
like it's really sweet.
now
Oh, so you
I,
mean
I
so
want to
you're
say, go ahead, Kinte.
so you're saying a woman giving a man a hard time all the time? Now that's the way a relationship's supposed to be.
I Sure. Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Do
Sure.
you think that part of I think part of how it flows with King Ezekiel and Carol is because he's kind of playing in the medieval times as a king, and his speech is old English type, you know speak, like with Jerry and everything, and how they, Your Majesty and this and that, how they portray as an old school thing. So it's kind of, I don't know. It just, to me, it just works.
See, because at the heart of who Carol is a pragmatist, right? Carol has always been a pragmatist. It took more than ultra pragmatism to do what she did with the girls.
That's one of them big words again.
Well, she's a realist, right?
Okay.
She has a very grounded sense of who she is, and very little veers her from that, or has veered her from that. And Ezekiel is more of a fanciful lover of life. But at the same time, I mean, somehow he's been able to manage what he's been able to manage, so there's got to be some elements of realism. But the two of them complement each other in a way that very few couples on The Walking Dead have, because they really do have very different approaches. And also because it's not like we're just meeting these two for the first time on screen and all of a sudden they're developing a romance. We were introduced to them. And we know who they are as characters. And then they got together, and it felt like there was something organic in that. Like
he's been chasing her for a while. He chased her for a long time through.
That's right.
What, 2 seasons, I guess, that he chased
her? Yeah. Remember the scenes from inside of that little cottage?
Right.
I mean, they were so sweet.
When she was when she was at the kingdom, and she's like, okay, that's it, I'm done, I'm out of here, and then he's like, shows up on her doorstep. She's like, go away.
And the idea...
It just built from there.
The idea that Carol this time was the one who sort of was out on flights of fancy, while Ezekiel turned the tables and said, no, okay, it's time to go. And I'm talking specifically about something that happens later in the episode. But that sense of sort of twisting things around also makes it feel like they have influence on each other. I just really like it.
Well, we'll see how this all shakes out. I guess we need to mention, the thing about Jerry having a baby. I'm like, why the hell would you want a baby? This is,
I'll be honest, right? I saw who was coming up on The Talking Dead. Mm-hmm. And I thought one of them was going to die tonight, or the night that the episode aired. And I was actually really excited that nobody bit it this time. Very excited. Because I was sure that either Jerry or Ezekiel, or possibly both, were going to die. So,
yeah.
Pro tip, actors from The Walking Dead. Don't go on The Talking Dead if you are slightly or even close to being written off the script, because we'll all think you're dead.
Well, that's if they care about that.
I care.
So can we wrap that in a bow? That aspect of the show.
I guess we can. I figured we'd just keep going with it until time ran out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now that it's done, I wanted to get that out the way, because I understand the Whisperers are different kind of folk. I get it. They're not like everybody else in this world even. But I find it funny that they go there to save Alpha's daughter, but then when they bring the baby, and when the baby's crying, she orders her to leave the baby down, basically to be used as a hors d'oeuvre for the walkers.
Did you get how she approached that though? Because Daryl said something about, you brought a baby. Well, we're animals, and we live out here, live in the wild, and it's basically, if the mother can't quiet the baby, then it's the laws of nature will take over, and the walkers will either eat the baby or leave it alone. So
yeah,
it's a natural selection is what they leave it at. So they're living in a type of fantasy that it's, we just live by nature, and if we're going to die, we're going to die, or if we get passed over, we get
that doesn't work though, because we're there to save someone's child.
Right. Well, okay, so this goes back to what I had said before in previous podcasts about how this philosophy is just really different, and why it is so it's insidious in the sense that it is very cult-like, right? And there are certain rules to the quote-unquote cult that sort of make things upend. There are things that are good for the cult leaders that are not always necessarily good for the cult. But in this particular instance, I do think that first of all, if that felt super contrived, and I didn't like it because it just felt, I don't know. From start to finish, it felt contrived. But it did highlight this idea that the Whisperers have, that it's not that they are animals, right? I know that's what she said, but that's not really the heart of it. The heart of it is they live in the world of the dead. And so either you adapt to the world of the dead or you don't live. That's it. And so if you have a baby and you can't quiet that baby, that's up to you. Then you decide at that point whether you live or die, whether the baby lives or dies. Like, that's up to you. And so that whole philosophy that's in this is, I know they're trying to sort of like unveil it a little, but I feel like this is where Lydia would be really important, right? Because if Lydia could explain to us in some kind of soliloquy, but better with Henry, what the philosophy of the Whisperers is, then I feel like we would get more from it. But instead, I mean, I know what they're trying to show us little bits and pieces, and I feel like it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense that way, right? You know what I'm saying?
Drinking the Kool-Aid. It's hypocritical.
It is hypocritical, but like I said, that's cult leaders.
Yeah, it's
cult leaders are hypocritical. That is the point. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. But it's BS. Yeah, so that's what the whole point I'm getting at is it was a bunch of BS that they, that they're going to save her daughter, but then, you say, oh, leave the baby. First of all, the baby shouldn't be there, but it is what it is. But okay,
we know that they're not all there. We know that not all of the Whisperers are in that group, right? Because we know that there's a camp elsewhere. So that is kind of telling. Why send the mom with the baby? Yeah, that didn't. Like I said, I felt like it was contrived.
What about when Daryl made the comment of like, hey, we've got enough firepower that we can, just wipe you all out, and then Alpha comes up and says, you would do that to the baby. In other words, basically, you're going to kill the baby, kill everybody and the baby, and then what you do 5 minutes later? Throw it to the walkers. So they contradict themselves the whole time, all through it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this though about the Whisperers. Just think in that hot. Were they in Virginia?
Yeah, they're in Virginia.
They're the hot Virginia weather, and they wearing a walker mask. Oh, that's gotta be nasty when you take that off.
I bet they smell real good.
Oh man, that's gotta be horrible, man. But I guess after a while you get used to it. But when you first put that thing on. Oh man.
Yeah, I can't imagine that feels very good.
Yes, and it's probably your face probably feels so I don't know. Jen, you've probably made a mask out of dead human skin. What's the key in doing that?
I think you gotta have to cure it a little bit. I don't know. No,
you gotta cure it a little bit.
Yeah. No, and you're thinking of my book. You're thinking of my Book of the Dead.
Oh, is that what it is?
My Necronomicon.
Oh wow, yeah, that's crazy.
If you put the mask on too soon after you make it, it's still kind of juicy, and it's it's more form fitting. You let it dry, cure that way. It fits better, but you have to put
that's
you have to put up with it sliding around on your face and stuff. It's kind of
it's pretty gross. Yeah, it's pretty gross. But okay, so with that aside, Alpha, besides being incredibly hot, let's talk about this as an overview. What have we learned from this episode about Alpha, as far as one is her as a leader and her as a formidable opponent?
Well, I personally think that if this episode did anything, it did show that Alpha is not just fearless. It showed that she is ruthless ruthless to a different degree, right? I mean, we've seen ruthless. We saw Negan. Negan was very ruthless.
Mm-hmm.
Alpha's different. Alpha feels much more manipulative,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly manipulative in sort of the direction of, she understands why people are living behind walls. Negan also understood why people were living behind walls, but his goal was to keep people living behind walls because that benefited him. Alpha finds zero benefit to living behind walls. And in fact, if you listen to Lydia, it sounds like that whole idea is, this is outdated and archaic. Look, you're not with the times. We don't live in that world anymore, according to Alpha. And I feel like they did a good job of expressing who she is on a fairly foundational level. One, you can't trust her. Two, she is extremely manipulative. Three, look at how fast she manipulated Daryl. I mean, that was crazy. Four, three, we have no idea why she actually wants Lydia. We don't know. I mean, it could be something as easy as, this is my daughter, but it could also be anything else. There could be lots of reasons that she wants her back.
What did you think about when they actually brought her out and she says, "Hi, Mom," and the first thing she does is just knock the crap out of her and say, "You will call me Alpha like everybody else." Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, yeah.
That's totally a Jen move.
Oh yeah, that's what I do with my kids whenever they argue with me. I just beat them down.
You would call me Alpha.
No, actually, in my house it's Queen. But yeah, okay, that's cool.
Queen.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Are you kidding me? If any of my kids are listening to this podcast, guys, I'm really sorry.
She's not. They know. She's not.
Her ego is right there with the governor and
Negan.
Yeah. She has a huge ego, man. And she doesn't. You know what I get from her and a lot of her people, that they don't have a big fear of death,
right? And they don't flinch.
They don't flinch at all. Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty terrifying, because even Negan's people flinched at the prospect of being killed. Or no, not just being killed. They flinched at the prospect of the natural world trying to get them. I mean, everybody had a healthy fear of the walkers.
Yeah. And they don't use guns. So,
that's right.
And they actually have a lot of guns. So, I mean, they could have wiped them out. They were afraid of the baby and their two people, but they could have wiped all those people out if it went that way. But so my question to you is, it seems like everybody, the difference that they come with other groups that are hostile to them, it seems like the other groups don't have the moral line that they still have. You know what I mean? Like they'll be harsh or they'll go hard, but then it's like, oh, there's a baby. Oh, well, we don't want to kill the baby, or there's like a line they won't cross, whereas, like with Alpha, you feel like there is no line that she would cross. Like if they had a baby, that wouldn't have stopped her from doing what she felt like she had to do. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think in some ways this is sort of, it's a Walking Dead trope almost, that the best of the bad guys have little to no moral bank.
Right.
And because of that, when you contrast it with what civilization is trying to do, which let's face it, was actually really telling, because at the beginning, of this episode, Ezekiel actually wrote in uh, Hilltop
Mm-hmm.
onto the document, right? Because it had been left off by Michonne.
Right.
When you think about how hard they are trying to come back to normalcy, the perceived threat of the dead is actually almost a subplot of the fight to regain a civilization on their own. I mean, it's weird that anything on The Walking Dead isn't just about The Walking Dead, but honestly, this group brings both of those things together. It brings the threat of the walkers plus the threat of, no, there is no normal. You don't get to have normal.
Mm. Do you see? I imagine, right, some of these groups that they've come across, they weren't always, without a line, but circumstances and just years out there existing in this world has turned them into animals, as they said. Do you foresee at some point in this series that our main group will get that kind of thing going on? Is that the end for them when when they don't have the moral compass anymore, where there is no line, there's no rules of engagement. It's
when they become complacent with everything else, then
mm-hmm.
I would say that would be the end for that, because with the trying to bring all the different communities together, it's like you still have to have morals. You still have to have that moral line of we're not going to kill them all off because there's a baby, and the baby might get killed in the process because you had a horde coming towards you. So you start shooting, that's going to draw them even faster. So, you may or may not be able to save the baby. But yeah, when they get to the point to where there is no uncrossable line, then it's pretty much over with then, because they've lost their moral line that keeps them going in a direction that's we're gonna build things back the way it won't be the way it was, but it'll be as good or better than how things used to be.
Right, and we know that the show, for sure, although I guess I could say the comics too, when you lose your moral center, that's usually the end for you, or it's close to the end. Either you leave or something else happens to you. And so you can only stray so far from moral center, from being, fairly okay before something bad happens to you. And I'm not saying that things cannot happen to you that are bad if you are not also good, but we know that the show definitely does not reward the sense of being out there so far. I mean, look at what we just went through with Negan. Everybody who was a savior had to die, basically, or they had to join and totally become something different. So I feel like that's what the show wants to say, that the other for them is always the people who are fighting, or not even fighting, who are not fighting for come back to civilization, or come back to civilization with some kind of moral, quote unquote, right attached to it. Right? Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. It makes absolutely perfect sense.
I mean, I feel like one of the reasons that we learned about Negan and his harem wasn't because we needed to know how many partners Negan had, but to highlight the fact that this is abnormal. You see what he's doing with his power? He's even controlling all the women. And like, there was no other, I can't think of any other really great reason for really deep kind of going into that mess, unless it was to really highlight the fact that see how bad Negan is. See everybody.
But I don't see that as a bad thing to have a harem.
Yeah, I'm sure you wouldn't. I kind of expected that, actually.
You know, when you bring that up, then then you have to go to the kingdom and King Ezekiel, where he went as the good king, the good ruler. Making sure his community was growing and thriving and everything. Like, he didn't have a harem of women, which he could have, because he is the king.
He wasn't like Kinte.
Yeah. It's like one like Kinte or one like me. So they it's like so you have both sides of the coin. And there's Negan, who is the Till the Hun, go in and after him and have your it's like a different girl for every night and all that. And then you have King Ezekiel, who's straightforward and taking care of his people. And then, to me, King Ezekiel, his group follows him and does what he wants out of respect for him. Negan's group did it out of fear, because they figured if they didn't, he'd just kill them.
Well,
which he would. So.
And the promise of the reward, which is you can live like me. I mean, that's why Negan lived the kind of excesses that he did, not just because, hey, I get to do this, but to act as sort of a beacon to everybody else, to say, hey, if you do a good job, maybe you'll get 3 women. Hey, if you do a good job, I'll give you extra rations, those kinds of things. And I mean, from a leadership standpoint, that's effective. That's, maybe it isn't morally correct, but it's effective.
No, I'll definitely agree with that. Now let me ask this question. Are you guys surprised that all Alpha wants, or no, maybe I shouldn't say this. Let me rephrase this. Is it the only reason why Alpha wants her daughter is just to get the daughter back, or is it she wants to know what the daughter knows for a possible assault later?
I would say it's for she wants to know what she's found out, because Alpha, like I said, very manipulative, and she said, I wanted to kill him, but I decided I could trade 2 for 1, and it's a fair deal. So I get my 1 back, you get your 2 back. So that's why we didn't kill him. And as far as trying to get her daughter back, I think it's more to find out what she knows more than it is to have her back. Or could also be that Alpha is obsessive compulsive, and that's her daughter, and she needs to be with her, whether she likes to be with her or wants to be with her. It's like, that's my possession, it needs to be with me.
Right. Let's go a little bit to Henry. I get it. Henry, the woman that he really wanted, she wasn't available, right? She wasn't available. She has a dude. There wasn't really any other women out there. And then finally, the Lord blesses you with a woman who just falls from out of the sky into your laps. And he's just happy. He got him a little chickadee. And then her mama comes to get her. So Henry's like, I don't care that, what they want. I'm going to steal her away because I ain't trying to give this up. Now I get it that he's only had like a very short time with her, but to be that invested in, her. I mean, I know you're going to probably tell me, oh, it's because he's a great guy. That's why.
It's because supply is short, so you grab what you can grab when you can.
Amen. So, Jen, as our resident love expert.
Oh, yes, out of my vast experience.
What's up with Henry and this girl? And do you think he was being selfish? Was he thinking with the little head, not the big head? Let's talk about the decisions that he made in this episode.
Okay. First, let's not forget that Henry has been raised mostly by Ezekiel and Carol, who clearly have a moral conscience and want that for Henry. So let's just say that first right off the top. But second, let's not forget that at that age, it doesn't really feel so far off the mark that you wouldn't want to just sort of abandon everything and say, yes, for true love, let's do it.
True love, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's just it, right? This, to me, that I've had this conversation with several people, and somebody who barely knows The Walking Dead, but's just seen a couple of episodes, said to me, if you're in the apocalypse, right, and there are very few people around, like, you know, it's a community and there's maybe 200 people altogether, right, and you know everybody, the chances of you wanting to do crazy things to attract someone else are probably going to be really high, because it's the law of supply and demand, right? And I don't feel like it's very far off the mark to say that Henry wouldn't have gone to extreme lengths to protect Lydia, not because necessarily he was just being the good, gallant guy, but because he had hormones running around going, yeah, you know, we should do this thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that he was doing an extreme amount of peacocking so that he could attract her to him.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's so far off. I mean, you know, in some ways I do think that Henry is looking at her like, okay, you know, Carol told me all this horrible stuff about her experience and maybe I can save you, but I don't know. I mean, Lydia, at first I thought Lydia was far more fragile than I think she actually is. Remember that it's Lydia that said, I'll go. Right? I mean, right. If there was, and I'm not saying that things couldn't be bad, but clearly she knows how to exist outside of the walls. So for her to say that, I don't know if things are quite as reciprocal as maybe Henry thinks they are.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where, you know, she doesn't get exposed to many, you know, possibilities. So I feel like, you know, yeah, he's good for now, you know, until something else might come along. So I feel like, you know,
he's good for now until she needs him as walker fodder.
Right. And then plus, you know, even what's the other girl, the one that went out and talked to her? The one who the boyfriend was rescued.
I can't think what her name is.
Oh my God, I'm trying to
right on the tip of my tongue.
Enid.
Yeah, Enid.
I'm sorry, I was on mute and I was telling you Enid the whole time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Enid. Okay, so Enid, it's so funny because she's like, when they realized that he had left and all of that, she was like, I'll go get him. He likes me, you know. Like she already knew that she could play that card. Like, you know, I know this guy really, you know, like I know what to say. Don't worry.
I can wink my it's like wink and wiggle a little bit and he'll come running back. So I'll go get him.
I think Henry was thinking when she said, "Oh, they have my boyfriend and whoever, and they want a trade for, you know, the girl for Lydia." He probably was thinking, "Wow, if they kill him, then that's double good for me." You know, like I don't think he was that, you know, that sad about
I wouldn't put it past him plotting in the back. Oh well, I'll just let them take her out there, and then as she's walking out, I'll just bean her in the head. I'll just shoot her in the head, and then they'll kill the other one. And that kills both of them off. And then I got free shot at Enid again.
Okay, yes. I think you may be slightly overplaying though the Henry card, because I don't think that Henry is thinking that far into anything. I think Henry is behaving extremely reactionary. Partly, I think, because of what happened between the two of them and the bond, if you will, that they kind of formed. But also because I still feel like Henry is trying to prove his worth. And every time he tries to prove his worth, I think he realizes more and more that his worth is something personal and not something community related. Like, he hasn't even figured out what he wants to do yet. And so that sort of drives him forward more than what does the community want to do. Because I can't imagine that he would take Lydia away from Hilltop if he really had thought about what would the ramifications be. What are the repercussions of this, and how do I figure it out? If that was still in the forefront of his mind, he wouldn't have taken her in the first place, right? You know what I'm saying?
Can I say something that I have something, and Olaf will agree with me, I'm sure, is I know what he was thinking about. And I've been his age. Okay? I know what he was thinking about. Mm-hmm. He was thinking about, this is my little slice.
Right.
And y'all ain't gonna take my slice. You know what I'm talking about, a slice of. Well, that's what he was thinking about. Believe me, he was totally motivated by hormones.
Yeah.
He might have dressed it up in his head in a nice bow, but believe me, that was the reason why. He was thinking, I finally got me some potential coochie, and y'all about to take it away. That's what he was thinking.
Well, I was born old, so apparently I just never experienced that. No, I'm just joking.
Well, I mean, you're not a dude, too.
Well, there is that.
That's exactly how. Olaf, am I lying?
He was hormonal thinking. He wasn't thinking with anything else. He were not thinking straight. He was just
That's kind of what I meant, though. I mean, I shouldn't. I guess maybe I said it a little bit wrong. I just think that we assigning any kind of Henry is thinking to his actions is sort of to negate the fact that I don't think Henry is thinking. I just don't think. I think he's just reacting. That's it.
He's reacting. His penis is leading him.
Yeah, it's a hormonal. It's a hormonal reaction. It's a hormonal reaction. It's like he's thinking, but it ain't.
You think if it was somebody named Bob, that you know what I'm saying? If it was some guy that he came to get her son, and you think he'd be like, nope, I'm gonna take him off to my treehouse, and
no, and we know that that's not the case, because we know that when Michonne brought the other group in and they were threatening to make them leave, nobody asked. Henry didn't say, "Oh, I know, I can spirit you guys away."
Right? No, he's thinking, man.
Of course, to Henry's defense, right? Mm-hmm. None of those people spent the night romantically holding hands with him in a jail cell, and I mean, we all know how endearing that is. So, yes,
nothing like jailhouse love. No, I don't blame him. Olaf, I ain't gonna lie. I'd have probably been worse than Henry. I'd have been like, no, this is mine right here.
It's like, I wouldn't have gone to the place he went to, because Enid says, I know where he's at. I know where he went. Yeah, no. I'd gone someplace else.
Yeah, they wouldn't have known where I was.
They couldn't find me.
But I did like what Henry said at the end of the episode, even though he went back on it. Well, he didn't go back on it, even though he did something completely different. Because he said, I get why we had to do it. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I feel like that is sort of that's the best representation of who Henry is. He does realize that there is a reality here, but also then in the same breath, he was gone and he went out to go chase her. So
right. He understood it had to be done, but he said, I can't live with that decision. I can't live without her. So,
Right.
I get it, but I'm going to go get it is what I'm going to do.
And I mean, and to think about this, if you put it in the context of the comics, right? I mean, like I said before, there is this romance that happens between Lydia and Carl in the comics, and the way that it unfolds, it very much unfolds that Lydia needs saving. I mean, she is definitely almost the quintessential damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. And here, at least I feel like they've sort of adapted it a little bit to make it feel like Lydia isn't quite as helpless. Mm-hmm. And maybe that works to both of their advantage. I don't know. There's a part of me, though, that like I, every time I see a Romeo and Juliet scene playing forward, it sort of it always makes me wonder, don't we ever think that because these things just happen, that this is just a universal truth? Like, how short-sighted of it was it that Daryl didn't sit down, or Tara or somebody, and talk to Henry for a really long time about what just happened, so that he didn't go do that?
Right.
Figured that it's like that Ezekiel had already had the birds and bees talks with him. They didn't figure they had to do it again.
But I'm pretty sure that Ezekiel never told him how he would feel if he held hands with somebody in a jail cell. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. He knows now. That's for sure. He definitely knows now. Okay, so
also just highlight, just remember, one other key piece of information that we learned about Lydia, about the Whisperers, is when Lydia specifically said she wasn't supposed to come back. I do actually feel like that might have been telling. Like, it might have been that maybe Lydia really didn't expect for Alpha to come back. Maybe there really was something to that, because that line of dialogue was not delivered in sort of a snarky way or in a side way. It was really delivered like it meant something.
Oh no, I definitely agree with that. And I think she, it meant something to her that her mother did come back,
Right. Yeah, as witnessed by when she said, "Thank you for coming back for me," as if that was sort of a surprise.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do believe that. So, but yeah, that's very interesting. Any last things that you guys want to touch on before we say goodbye?
I do want everybody to remember that when the Kingdom was leaving with the projector bulb after their successful mission, which was actually really great. I have to say, I really liked that. I loved that inside the theater thing. That was tense. I mean, it was tense in a way that I had forgotten that The Walking Dead can be. It was tense, like they didn't build it up to just be, is the walker going to get them? It was tense, like there were so many little components to it that it felt well put together. I really liked that. But as they were leaving, there was a symbol on the back of the street sign, and we don't know what that might mean. Somebody's marking their territory.
An upside down V with a line across. Yeah, that's
Yeah, what could that mean?
Alien.
Well, alien. Now, it's like, did you all find it interesting? I found it kind of like, another twist with the walkers is, okay, the girl that can't hear, deaf girl, it's like one of them was giving her sign language, and hey, there's a baby over there, there's walkers coming and all that. So I thought that was kind of cool. They didn't catch that one, and she runs off, grabs the baby, and is running around with the baby. Can't hear anybody coming up behind her or nothing, and she's fighting walkers off. I thought that was kind of a new twist on battling walkers, is when you're deaf.
No, that was cool as heck. That was I really did enjoy that scene. Yeah,
I mean,
it was a little scary, Yeah, and
she's got a baby and she's got a knife in her hand and she's running along. It's like, oh, somebody grabbed me. Oh, turn around.
It's like that Asian movie, the where the guy has the baby and he's shooting in the hospital, and they kind of ripped it off in the last Fast and the Furious.
Right.
So no, it's no, that was really good. So anything else before we say goodnight?
I know that we don't talk a whole lot about it, and obviously I think there's probably good reason for it, but one thing that really struck me this week about the conversation between Carol and Ezekiel was about the falling out that Michonne had with God, I don't know why her name is now completely
Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie. Yes, thank you. I was just about to call her Lauren. That we still don't understand any of that. We still don't know not just what drove that wedge, but why did Michonne leave Hilltop out of the? I mean, that's huge. Apparently Hilltop was left out of the civil rights, the new Bill of Rights for the communities. I feel like that's a big thing.
Well, I know what it is. I saw spoilers, and just as a spoiler alert, I found out why she, in fact, they fell out. It was because they had a ball, and they wore the same dress, and they were just they were mad at each other.
I knew that was going to happen. I was knew it.
Wondering where you were going with that.
So yeah, so that she's like, oh, well, they're out of the Bill of Rights. So
hey, I feel like that's actually justice, because I'd do that too. You can't be wearing the same thing I am.
It's like walk in. She walks in one side of the room, and Michonne walks in the other side, and they both got the same dress on. Damn it! All right.
Dude, it's the end of the world. You'd think you could get original, okay?
It's the zombie apocalypse. Your choices are very slim. You're both going to go to the same dress store, so
There's no way that wasn't on purpose.
All right. Oh God, sorry about that. I forgot I'm on video. So let's go to Olaf. How can people get you in social media and all that good stuff?
Well, you can stalk me on both Facebook and Twitter at Olaf Barbosa, but just don't stop too close, because I do get nervous and I do have an itchy trigger finger.
All right, and Jen, how can people get you in social media?
You can find me at Following Bliss One, pretty much across most social media, and you can find my website called moviesmakethemeal.com at moviesmakethemeal.com.
A friend of mine said, why does Olaf get his own sound effect? What about Jen? I'm like, really? It's like,
oh, I mean, if y'all,
because
dude, I'll definitely come up with something awesome.
I was like, I don't have my own sound effect. What are you talking about? But you can get me at Kinte F on Twitter, as well as Kinte Ferguson. That's KinteFergerson at Instagram. And you can get us at indyradio.org. That's indyradio.org. We'll be back next week at our regular time on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. You guys have a great week, and God bless.
Thanks for listening.